Hello, it's Liddell here, and today I'm going to show you how to stitch these cards together to make your little mini album. So you can see here I've got a template that's just 4 or 5 inches cut off the end of an A4 piece of paper, folded in half, and I've marked 1 inch from both ends and then 2 inches in between, so that we've got 4 holes. I'm just using a buffing pad for nails, an old one, and I'm just poking holes right in the crease and where those little lines interact there, and then I'm just going to put it inside the card, and you can use this as a template to put all your holes in all your cards. And you can use as many as you like. In my album, I think I used about 7, which gives you plenty of signatures to be able to put together. And this one here, I'm just doing 4 cards, which also makes a nice size little album when you're doing front and back. So you can see I'm just systematically going through. Just make sure your fold goes inside the fold of your card so that all those little holes go right in that crease of your fold. And it's okay if you happen to have it a little bit off, it'll still stitch together fine. But if you take a bit of time to make sure that the holes are right in the crease, then the stitching will be nice and easy. So I've done my holes there, and you just sit them together. Now these are called signatures, and if you are making a regular book, they are bunches of just normal thin paper put together, stacked inside each other to create those signatures. But a card is quite thick, so that will just behave as a signature on its own. Now this string is just regular string that I've gotten for scrapbooking, and I'm measuring just a bit longer than the card, and 1 stretch for each signature that you're doing, each card that you're doing, plus you can do 1 extra if you just want to make sure. Now I'm using a curved bookbinding needle, but you can use any needle that's got a hole large enough for your string to go through. These are touch and go for some strings. They're a little bit thicker, and you just have to wet it and pinch it between your thumb and forefinger so that it's really flat to put it in, but it usually goes through. I don't usually have too much trouble, it's just a bit fiddly. Now the trick is just keeping your tail out the way because it's quite long, and if you just keep in mind what your intent is for this process, like attaching the cards together, then you will have a bit of intuition will help you. So this first one, you're starting on the outside and going inside the card and creating this long stretch of string all the way through the center and just going out the other hole at the bottom. This part it's easy, but it's a little bit fiddly to hold all the pieces together. So you've got your string coming out, the tail coming out the end, and you've got a long string going all the way through and out the bottom. Now you're attaching your next signature, so you're going in the end hole and then up the middle of the 3rd hole and back out again. Like I said, a little bit fiddly sometimes to get this needle to work, but it doesn't matter if you're using a curved or a straight one, it's no consequence. So you're coming out that hole and going back into that first signature because we're attaching the first and the second signature. Now what our intent here is to loop around that string in the middle so that it doesn't come straight back out the hole again. So you're looping that string, going back out of that 3rd hole in the first signature, and then back into that 3rd hole of the second signature. So that way, now we have attached the first and the second signature together. So that part is done now. Now you're going to go back up into the 2nd hole and do that process again. Now the first and second signatures are a little bit different to the rest just because you are looping through that big long string and back out to attach them together. And that is the way that you attach the first and the second signatures. So now we're just going back into the second signature, second hole, and you've attached that section then of these two signatures together. And now we're going out the first hole in the second signature, and from here logic would tell you that you can tie that tail on, and now your first and second signature is complete and completely attached on all 4 spots. And now we're going to move on to a regular coptic stitch to be able to attach all other signatures, as many as you'd like to do. So you just stack that signature back on. Oh, excuse my bird. I don't know why he is going off at the moment, but yes, if you can hear that, that's a ringneck parrot that is singing loudly. So we've attached the first block of signatures with that third signature, and we've just gone into the first hole and you loop straight out the second hole. And now we're going to do a little stitch from the outside to attach the first lot to that third signature. So all you're doing is going around the stitches. Now if you didn't get that, because it's a little bit, I'm holding it a bit low in the camera, you're literally going up and down throughout these signatures, but in between each up and down you're looping through that stitch you did on the spine from the first 2 signatures. So you're just going around it and then back through that same hole you came out. So if you have to watch that again, just pause it and rewind it a little bit, because it is actually very easy, though it looks a little bit fiddly when you're not really used to the stitch. So you go in and out pretty much, and then between each stitch you're going to attach the signatures by just looping the string through the previous stitch on the spine and then back through that same hole. Now I'm going to do one more signature, and I stop at this point. This is why my nail colour changes, because I put it down for a bit and then I started again after I'd done my nails. So thus the colour change. So now you've got those 3 signatures together and we're going to do it again. So this is just reiterating what you do. So down through that last hole. So you're literally going up and down each signature every time you add a card. So in and out, like I said. This is Hugo. Hello. No. And then once you've come out, you loop through the stitch on the binding, the previous stitch on the binding. Now this is the fiddly part here. It looks worse than it is, but I'm just trying to make all those threads sit nicely as I'm stitching, because if you don't do that, you'll have gaps when you open your signatures flat. There'll be wider gaps. So if you just try and every now and then pull the string taut. The nice part about these cards is they're nice and heavy, and so pulling the string's not going to damage your holes at all. Just do it firm, but not like too hard. So there I am going through the stitch in the binding, the previous stitch in the binding, and then going back through that same hole. So back into the second hole, loop it around the stitch in the binding, and then back through that same hole just to attach that last signature to the previous stack that you have already done. So in this way you just keep going and going until you've added all the signatures that you'd like. and they are very nicely permanently attached. They will not come undone because you've got these little stitches in the spine between each signature. Now when you come out the first hole again, then you just tie the first tail in the first signature to the last tail and tie a knot on it. I usually leave this just because it's an opportunity to add any dangly bits or anything. So leave them a little bit longer. You can decide later whether you want to cut them right short or whether you want to add little bits to it. If you do want to cut these little strings right off, then you can just put a little dab of white glue on the knot after you've trimmed it down, and then it won't shift. So just decorate your cover. Because it's so thick, you can do that. You don't need to add anything heavier onto the front or back, but your little album is done. Hope you enjoy that, and I hope you have fun making your own albums out of slimline cards. Bye.